Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University with a joint faculty appointment at Ross University School of Medicine. And it is with great honor that we've been selected to present in front of the World Psychiatric Association this very important occupational health topic of elevated blood levels and how this is linked to suicidal ideation. So I worked on this with Dr. Lane, one of my former students and graduate, and so looking at this idea of lead, traditionally lead is discussed pertaining to children's developmental issues and in terms of performance, grade performance. But as far as adult impact of lead on the body, very little is known. And for preliminary research, when I called up the state health department trying to determine the types of funding, the director actually of environmental health indicated to me that this had been slashed. Now this is a number of years ago, so since then policy, I do understand, has been addressing at least partially some of the deficiencies. And at the time, surveillance was a deficiency in occupational lead exposure. Batteries still exude lead. Lead doesn't go away, and it is actually sweet to the taste, which is why it's appealing to children. But in terms of dissipation within the environment, lead doesn't easily dissipate. That's another disadvantage. So in the study, we were trying to assess, make sure, and see if there's any sort of mental health link with elevated lead. Of course, physiologically, we were talking about, cognitively, we were talking about impact, but psychologically. So does it affect, does it impact affect? So looking at just overall blood lead levels, they have gradually been going down, but there's still work to be done here in terms of blood lead levels. And I can kind of actually magnify the table. Blood lead levels actually greater than 40 has stayed pretty stable, and that is alarming. So that's why there's more work that is needing to be done. And so presently, the level of concern that's set by the CDC is actually 5 micrograms per deciliter. And by the end of this, I hope you would see that if you want to start to address mental health issues, suicidal ideation, then that level of concern needs to go down. Lead levels below 3 produce maladaptive behavior and cognitive deficits. I'm not just saying this. We're not just saying this in this research, in this in this study. Don't take our word for this. Go into literature, and it says it everywhere. In fact, the levels of concern in many different countries are different than what we have. So this is an area that really needs to be looked at further, and I'm going to go into the methodology. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey had data on individuals with elevated urinary lead levels. So basically, urinary specimen was collected, sample was collected from each respondent, and the lead levels were measured. So this was regarded as elevated if the individual had over, now notice the threshold that we set. Over 1.9, over about 2 micrograms per deciliter. This is well below the 3 even. That leads to cognitive deficits. And we were trying to see if this was connected to suicidal ideation. But furthermore, we wanted to see, and this is oftentimes the case, is it affecting one gender more than the other? There can be arguments made either way, but we wanted to see, at least here, how this is. And I wanted to just go back quickly to kind of how much lead poisoning just takes place overall among the 50 states. And the bluer states are areas where children get exposed to more lead than the lighter states. And now looking at the map here under the results, this is one that I created from data that was pre-existing in 2021 county health rankings. And this is looking at rates of suicide per 100,000. And of course, the light blue areas are corresponding to higher rates. So as you can see, I mean, it's not all blue. That's one thing to note. There's kind of a wide distribution of areas where there's more increased rates of suicide. So this would influence then if we took a look at a map. I would suspect that the areas of deprivation, socio-demographic deprivation, would be correspondent to areas where there's occupational hazard to lead. But if we kind of split this up, it affects male workers lead more adversely and than female workers. So if you're male and you're exposed to lead and maybe occupationally, then you're more likely to have suicidal ideations than females. So, what's the take-home message here? Well, it's important that understanding complex biosocial characteristics and interactions and how they work together to create an environment for individuals and for societies to have more suicidal ideation. Of course, this might be neurological sort of brain area levels. But I just wanted to also point out that the actual number, and this is important too, so you're 2.5 times more likely if you are male and exposed to lead of suicidal ideation than if you were not exposed to lead and if you were male. And this is pretty significant and considerable amount. So what are we recommending? Just quickly wrapping up, a level of concern needs to go down. Level of concern, we're showing you right here that the level of concern needs to be around less than 2. And so if we want to get population level improvements, we have to invest more resources into surveillance, making sure that the regulations and policies are more strict occupationally, making sure environmental hazards are not being exposed by individuals in the workplace. And we have safe workplace, and safe workplace leads to healthy and safe communities. And this is what is all about the social determinants of change, social determinants of health, and also driving social change. Thank you for listening.